to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides for this deep dive of Luc Besson's 1997 Cyberpunk Space Opera, The Fifth Element.
This is a really crazy movie, first off. I could not remember, I didn't remember half of the plot elements. I mostly just kind of remembered the Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich
like just the
plot line.
The look of it, right?
Yeah.
Like just the visuals.
The costumes. Those were huge.
Similarly, it's a movie I've seen a lot of times because for a long time this was my wife Lisa's favorite film, and so I've seen it a lot. But I had completely forgot like the intro, like when when it opens Egypt 1914, I was like, what?
Yeah, that really threw me as well. This movie is really interesting because it was a smash success. It was made for $90 million, but it grossed over $264 million.
Yeah,
it's a pretty big success.
But it was not considered successful in America at the time.
Sure,
right?
It took it took international distribution, and then it actually exploded when it got to video.
Yeah, and I first saw it on VHS. I'm sure that I didn't see this in the theater, but I kind of remember when you and I worked at Montgomery Ward's getting these videos in and buying one.
Yeah,
or one coming home with me, regardless of whether I purchased it.
Yeah. I don't think I took one home, but I definitely did see it a bunch of times on VHS. I maybe even DVD. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But this was definitely in my DVD collection later on. I had this one, and I always really thought well of this movie. This was something that I had always held in my pantheon of good sci-fis that aren't just derivative nonsense.
Yeah, the VHX box had the tag on it, Star Wars for the 90s, and in the 90s that felt true. Because we hadn't had a Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi, or unless you count the Ewoks TV movies.
Oh,
and this really did sort of like that sort of space opera-y kind of science fiction stuff had been ignored
but
for a good long
trashy.
while. like
90s trashy.
Yeah, and it's grimy the way old school Star Wars was, like as opposed to like the sterile world of Star Trek, like that kind of science fiction. This is more, it's grittier, but it's not Blade Runner gritty. It's like it's in that Star Wars sweet spot of tone, I think.
Yeah, and it definitely has an artistic vision and style, because the story was written by the director. This is original content. This isn't like a novel adaptation. It was a short story. Yeah,
and it's a story he wrote when he was 16 originally.
Yeah, and I mean, the plot line kind of reflects that, how it's sort of simplistic. There isn't huge. This isn't hugely complex.
No, it's very inspired by this Franco-Belgian comics that he grew up on, and it is very comic booky. Like,
oh yeah,
and it's ahead of the curve as far as that goes. Like, comic book movies were not. If you're a Zoomer, you might not know there was a time when they weren't the dominant force. Where
they were rare, and it was a coin flip whether it was great or terrible.
Not even it's more like
more were bad.
More were bad. Easily more were bad.
I mean, but 5-star movie The Crow was a comic book.
Right?
It was from the 90s.
And so was The Phantom with Billy Zane.
Oh,
so it's like,
and Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy's good.
That's bad sauce right there.
That's a good movie.
No. It also took over. It was like Batman's successor in pop culture. It took over everything.
Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
That was the.
They're trying to recreate the success there.
The weird lesson that was taken from Batman was not that people are interested in superhero movies. It was that pulp heroes of the 1930s are popular.
And you can do merchandising.
Yeah. And so it was like Dick Tracy and The Shadow.
The Shadow, I like that one, actually.
Yeah, with Alec Baldwin.
Better than Dick Tracy by far.
Oh, I don't think that's true, but I also
do we need to do some pulp
heroes
movie?
of the 1930s?
I don't know.
That's just what the kids like.
Yeah. Everyone will flock to us. All right. So let's get on with this and let's roll for initiative.
All right.
Ooh, lucky number 1.
Ooh, I got a 5, so I go first. So my first bit of news is Quentin Tarantino is starting a podcast.
Oh man,
it's called
everybody has a podcast nowadays.
I know, stepping on our toes.
Jeez, we did it back when it was cool in COVID times.
I mean, he really is stepping on our toes here because it's called the Video Archives Podcast. And he's doing it with Pulp Fiction co-writer Roger Avery. And it's based on Tarantino and Avery both worked in a video store together in the early 80s called Video Archives. And when they went out of business, Tarantino bought the whole collection of the store.
Oh,
and so they're going to watch movies from the collection of the 8,000 tapes and DVDs that he purchased. And so they're going to watch movies from their time as video store clerks.
Okay, that's a really cool premise.
It is. It's going to be on Stitcher, which I don't use.
Is it one of those stupid exclusive things? Like I can't get it on my favorite podcatcher or even like Audible or.
I don't really know how Stitcher works. I think we're on Stitcher, but I don't.
I mean, it's a podcatcher, but it's also a provider.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Spotify, like how Rogan is on Spotify, so are we, but he's only on Spotify.
So this is being hosted by Stitcher. I don't know if that means I have to download the Stitcher app or if my podcatcher
That's not going to happen, Divers.
We'll catch it.
I'm not.
You won't do it?
No, hell no.
It's free.
You can't get me to a platform with one piece of content.
But then you could just use it as your main.
I really like the Google Podcast app that's native to Android. It's very smooth.
You know, I have no idea why I use Podcast Addict. Although, I mean, if you use it, that's great. It's what I use, but I don't. It just was the very first.
I think Audible might actually be where I should go for my podcast because I think Audible, because I use it so much already for audiobooks, I might as well. I mean, I'm subscribed to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse on Audible, where you can also rate and leave a
5-star review.
Leave a review. I felt tacky reviewing us, but I did see that is possible. So yeah, that's where we should go. F Stitcher.
Hopefully my regular podcatcher will catch this pod. If it's well received, I might get the Stitcher app. Anyways, what's your next news item?
All right. So we got some news here for What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh.
The season 4 premiere is next month. It's July 12th. I'm really stoked for that. I think the title for the first episode is like Reunited or something like that. So that should be fun. I'm really curious how the storyline goes because season 3 ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But the other piece of interesting news, the reason I bring it up roughly a month early, is season 4 is yet to hit, but they already renewed it for seasons 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So we have 3 out and we've got 3 to come. I'm stoked for that, actually. This is one of my favorite shows of right now.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that too. It was also on my news list.
Great. Glad I stole one from you because you have more than me.
Did you watch the trailer?
I didn't catch it. I was working all day.
Okay. Yeah, it looks interesting. They must be getting a bigger effects budget because I mean, we already spoiled how it ended with Colin Robinson, right? Yeah. So he's quite a digital effect now, right? Because he's a baby with his head on it.
Yeah. It's great.
And so it's like every scene with him in it now.
They're going to be raising Colin Robinson.
There's like a dollar sign just like ticking by every time they show him. So it's
just as long as they don't make some of the effects that are supposed to be cheesy too good, like when Laszlo says "bat," and turns into a bat.
No, I think they know exactly where they sit quality wise and are very comfortable there. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that too.
All right. So what do you got next?
Up next, the trailer for Street Fighter 6 dropped.
Oh, I saw that. I passed on it because I wasn't sure anyone gave a shit about fighting game movies.
No, it's not a movie.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. The new fighting game, because the whole... I think all of the characters have been spoiled at this point, unless they're secret characters.
There will always be more characters because Capcom loves to sell us DLC.
Yeah, it'll be like Mega Man.
Yeah, probably at some point. But yes, the whole character roster leaked ahead of schedule.
As long as you have Ken and Ryu, you're good.
See, they had not officially announced Ken yet. He's in the leak.
I am a Ken player. That is a must.
If you read the information in the leak, he's in bad shape.
Oh.
Eliza left him. Like, he looks...
Is he like old man Ken? Ken, is this the Dark Knight Returns Ken?
It is sort of like, it's more like... yeah, maybe the Dark Knight Returns before he becomes Batman again, like where he's just out with a death wish, because he's got like fingerless gloves and a ratty jacket, and he looks scruffy, and his wife left him, and he can't do his flaming shuriken anymore.
Oh no!
Yeah, so it's a Ken that's trying to get his mojo back.
Okay, that's cool.
But anyways, the big change for this game is that it's in the Capcom's RE engine, which is the same engine the Resident Evil games and Monster Hunter games are in.
Okay.
Because it has a World Tour mode, which is an immersive single-player story mode that's like open world.
Oh.
Where you walk around, and what they show in the trailer is walking around Metro City, which is
and just hurricane kick entire crowds.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can just attack people in Metro City, but yeah, that was
like Cyberpunk
throwing fireballs and just like, oh my god,
you're just smoking civilians.
Yeah, I don't think it's intended to do that, but if you can't do it for fun, what fun is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I'm always in the bag for Street Fighter games. I'll pre-order this, and I'll get the expensive one so I get all the characters at the start and I don't have to grind.
I'll just have to come over to your place and play it against you.
It's more fun with two people,
for sure. All right, so I saw an interesting trailer today. I saw it at lunch, even though I didn't see what we do in the shadows. I saw Prey, the newest entry into the Predator franchise.
Is that what that is?
It is available in August. It's a made for Hulu movie. Yeah, it's direct to Hulu. And it's set 300 years ago, where he is doing battle against Comanche warriors. Seems really cool. And at first I was just like, dude, they're speaking in English. What's this all about? And then turns out they actually did a full dub in Comanche, so you can listen to it in Comanche with subs.
For real?
Yeah,
it's like the Mel Gibson movie Apocalypto.
Yeah, and so they have like a full they have like Comanche people working on the movie for authenticity purposes and all this stuff. It's pretty legit seeming. I want to watch this movie. And it's on Hulu. I already have Hulu, so I'm going to watch it, of course.
I'll definitely watch this movie because even though I didn't see the last Predator movie, I'm in the bag for this series.
I love historical fiction. And come on.
Yeah,
Comanches versus Predators? That's dope.
It is dope. I wonder, I bet it ties in to the original Predator, because there was the one Native American guy.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
In Dutch's squad. I bet somehow it's tied to him.
But it's 300 years.
Yeah, like his ancient tribal ancestors or something.
I mean, yeah, that would be really cool.
Dope. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in the bag for that. I was a little skeptical until I started reading more, and I saw that they do have a Comanche dub of it, and it's they've done a lot of work for authenticity of like regalia and garb and stuff. So that's
really cool. I've seen that in my feed, and I didn't know what it was, and I kind of was like, why does this Prey movie keep coming up in my YouTube suggestions?
Because they know what you like.
They know they know better than me, and I should just trust the algorithm.
Yeah, just trust Google. It's fine. All right, what else you got?
Rip Ken Kelly, legendary fantasy artist.
Oh yeah.
He also did a bunch of album covers, like two Kiss album covers, Destroyer, and I forget the other one, Rainbow. you know, he's sort of, he's that guy that's not Frank Frazetta. You know what I mean? Like of the fantasy
He did
artists.
the barbarian with the sword aloft and the lightning striking it on the side of a van.
Yeah, he did a lot of Conan covers, and he's really one of the only fantasy artists to me that kind of rivaled Frank Frazetta in quality. And I just found out when he passed away, and I started reading articles about him. He's actually Frank Frazetta's nephew.
Oh,
so
okay.
there was like a familial connection there because their art styles are very similar.
Oh, that's good. I mean, that he wasn't a rip-off guy. He was a family member.
Yeah. So it's a big bummer. All these a lot of old artists that I really admire.
You know, as we
away.
get old, all of the people that were like cool when we were kids, they're now old as hell.
Mm-hmm. I know it's a bummer, man. So pour one out for Ken Kelly and, you know, maybe do some donuts in your Chevy van in his honor. Only if you have an epic mural on the side of it.
So do you have anything else?
My final one is after 20 years at Marvel Comics, Joe Quesada is stepping down.
Oh, wow.
He started as an artist, then he was the editor of the Marvel Knights line in the early 2000s, and then eventually editor-in-chief, and then CCO of Marvel. And then most recently, he was executive vice president and creative director.
Jeez.
So 20 years ago, Marvel was bankrupt and was really like looking to sell off the furniture, sort of in dire straits. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they have turned around to become the massive monster that they are now,
become a Disney subsidiary.
It's largely due, or in no small part anyway, to his leadership. And so he really turned that company around. And so, you know, on to new things.
He's probably doing real well for himself.
Yeah, real folding money.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and hear what is our podcast fuel.
Our podcast fuel today is, and this is a first for us, from Boulevard Brewing Company, not here local. They're from Kansas City, Missouri.
All right.
Actually, Kansas City's probably in Missouri. I'm not sure where in the great state of Missouri that line is on whether you call it Missouri or Missouri.
I don't bother myself with the pronunciations of the far off lands.
I think the people in Kansas City probably say Missouri. It's those people out, the banjo pickers, further out. Anyways, it is called Space Camper. It is a Cosmic IPA, India Pale Ale. It is 5.9 ABV and 40 IBUs. And Space Camper Cosmic IPA is an exhilarating initiation into a mind-bending alternate universe of India Pale Ales.
Okay, so, I mean, why is it cosmic? What makes it more than just a West Coast style pale and IPA? Because that's really what it tastes like.
Yeah, well, what's different here is they employ massive hop additions at the end of the boil and during fermentation to minimize upfront bitterness and create a juicy IPA bursting with tropical fruit flavors.
So like every West Coast IPA maker.
And aromas of nectar and citrus.
All right, you guys in the South, you sorted it out.
You're getting there.
You're getting there. Yeah, this is pretty good. I like the art, too. It's got this space lady in a spacesuit with the red hair, like Lilu.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah, this is good.
It is good. You don't think of Missouri as having good breweries?
I mean...
I used to work with a Missourian, and he said that he was always amazed at the variety in the beer aisle at any grocery store, because he said in Missouri, it's all Busch products. Anheuser-Busch. Because Busch is king.
So like 10 Barrel and...
now they would be, yeah, sure.
I'm sure you can find some niche offerings from IBV or whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then let's deep dive into the fifth element.
All right, divers, welcome back. Let's dive into The Fifth Element, Luc Besson, 1997.
So this starts us off in Egypt in 1914. there's a professor and he's studying some symbols on the wall. It kind of pans in from a view. It's clearly an archaeological dig, and he's got some local boys bringing water and whatnot.
You skipped over. We did get some cool Star Wars-esque space shots of the approaching spaceship beforehand.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's kind of negligible.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're in Egypt in
1914.
Prime tomb raiding time, where the British were really just robbing everything. There's still
preserving. You mean?
There's still more Egyptian gold in London than there is in Egypt.
Yeah.
So I just thought this was a little bit tasteless, but that's just me. It's interesting because he's looking at these glyphs and he see these symbols in the wall, and they start talking about it. And there's a little boy named Aziz who keeps falling asleep holding the reflective surface.
Yeah, it's very, I guess, Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Like it has that adventure movie vibe, and you got Luke Perry there, looking like he just R.I.P. Luke Perry for sure. Like looking like he came from the set of The Mummy. Like he's wearing like Brendan Fraser's costume from The Mummy with the boots and everything. So just some trivia stuff. This is actually filmed in Mauritania, not in Egypt.
Okay.
But still in the neighborhood, right? North Africa. And they pull a switcheroo on us because the kids outside are Mauritanian locals. The kids inside are British kids, because all the stuff inside the temple is filmed at Pinewood Studios in the UK.
Oh, interesting.
And I had like this little glitch, right? When the kid runs in, I was like, something happened there, but then I just rolled with it.
Sure.
But it's an entirely different kid.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So you see these pictures. It's got these 4 elements, and they're surrounding this person in the middle. It looks like kind of a stick figure, and it's it's the human shaped 5th element,
right? And
so they're kind of talking about that stuff, and then this priest guy comes and he's like, oh yeah, they're listening to what this priest has to say, but it's very clear that something shady is going on. He keeps trying to get him to drink this water, and it's
the priest that comes in seems very sinister. Actually, like more sinister than he is. We discover he has good motives or whatever, but they're very much coding him as a villain, like the way he shows up. There's something. I always find it really amusing the way in these sort of scenes people translate hieroglyphics into English
directly
and just read it as though they're reading text. And I just like, because he's like, and then the evil enters, and the 4 elements combine to create a 5th element, and he just reads it as though he's deciphering this ancient prophecy. And it's like, I don't think hieroglyphics quite work that way.
Yeah, maybe it has a different grammar structure. He's just freestyling.
Yeah.
So basically, the professor is trying to the priest is trying to keep the professor from figuring out what's going on here. Because he's like the protector of this ancient lore and whatnot. And they're like, the professor's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be famous. It's going to be great. And then it's like, oh, well, let's toast your fame with this water. And he goes, you can't toast with water.
Yeah.
And dumps it out.
Yeah. Cause we see the priest, he pours his little thimble of poison into the water skin, and then he's thwarted when the professor is actually a bit of a wino, and he sends his graduate student Luke Perry to go and get the bottle of vino.
And right after that, a spaceship lands right outside, and of course we get another Aziz joke with the light. And then when the spaceship lights up, he's like, oh, that's great lighting, or whatever. And anyway, the priest calls them the Mandashawans or Mandashawans.
It's spelled like Mandosh. Yeah. The way that people pronounce it doesn't match how it spells, or how it is spelled. So it's like Mandashawan is probably pretty close.
Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah. And so basically these aliens look whack.
You don't like them?
No, they're like big, clunky things. They remind me of the automatons out of, oh man, what was that? Like really bad movie. Anyway, I can't remember. Just big and clunky and
the thing that
bronze.
They make me think of, the way they move and like their body language and their shape, is something from Jim Henson. Like the Skeksis move like this.
Yeah,
and they're big guys in suits, and they're huge guys. They're huge suits, so they're huge guys in huge suits.
And they're big and round, and like really kind of like. It's like they're big clocks or something.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's very much like Franco-Belgian sci-fi comics. Like Jean-Claude Mézières is the production designer. He's the illustrator of the comic book Valerian and Laureline, which was a long-running sci-fi comic in France, which Luc Besson also adapted into a movie more recently. This is very his aesthetic, like that sort of French sci-fi aesthetic.
Huh. Yeah, I just thought it looked weird. And basically they're saying like, yeah, we'll be back in 300 years. Here's a key.
Yeah.
And,
because they're removing the 4 elemental stones because Earth is on the verge of World War I.
Yeah.
And so they go, war is coming. They're not safe here. And so... we're taking them, and we know because the professor has been explaining the prophecy to us. This happens every 3,000 years, and so we're 300 years out from the next time the ultimate evil comes to harass Earth.
Yeah, and then the aliens trying to leave, and and they end up giving the priest the key.
Yeah, Luke Perry.
Starts shooting.
Yeah, he
gets kind of wacky. It is a completely unimportant sort of tense scene that contributes very little. They could have just handed the key over and it wouldn't have mattered. Like, we'll be back in 300 years. Here's the key.
That's true.
Because you're going to need this chamber at some point.
Which I guess that's why I didn't remember that this scene was in the movie.
I think this whole prequel part, this is like the prologue of the novel. This whole prologue is throwaway scenes. Yeah, it's interesting that I mean neither of us remembered them because it's been a long time since I saw this movie, and I forgot the entire Egypt scene. I forgot the way that those armor clad aliens looked, and I was just like, so slow you can't get out of a shutting door. Some kind of supreme beings you are. And so then the movie really starts.
Right. That is, we get the 300 years later, and we see this very, I call it a Kubrickian military spaceship. It looks very straight out of 2001.
I was thinking like Spaceballs style.
There is a tongue-in-cheek comedy element to this.
Yeah.
You're not totally out of line with that. Anyways, the spaceship, it's approaching, a strange-looking planetoid, and then we cut down to Earth in New York City, and we meet the president of the Federated Territories.
Yeah, and he's in New York, and they're basically saying, what do we do? And they eventually decide they're just going to shoot the object. They're just going to blow it up. Yeah,
that's what the general advises. He says, I think we shoot first, ask questions later.
And then they shoot it and nothing happens. Or,
more happens than that because Father Vito Cornelius objects before they fire.
They're saying this is the ultimate evil.
Yeah. He kind of starts dropping knowledge on them, and he does give the president pause, but the generals just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the president would have a priest right nearby, especially a priest of a wackadoo fringe cult. And then also, it does jive that they would ignore him if he was president.
Right. Yeah, and I've really always loved this casting of Tommy Tiny Lister as President Lindbergh. so in 1997, obviously, we had yet to have a black president.
Yeah.
We've still yet to have a black pro wrestler president, though much speculative fiction keeps pointing us in that direction with, what's the other one? Comancho?
Yeah, Idiocracy.
Idiocracy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really good casting too, and he does a really good job.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like the only time he's ever got to play against type, because if you look at his IMDb, he plays the same character. Like,
yeah,
there's not a lot of space between Zeus and No Holds Barred and Debo and Friday.
No,
like,
not at all. It's the same guy.
It's the same character. Yeah, so like I like getting to see him play this different role.
But No Holds Barred was pretty dope.
Wrestling movies,
professional wrestling movies. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Would you put Over the Top an arm wrestling movie in that category?
You might have to. You might have to pull that in there. It is a form of wrestling. Sure. Yeah. So, anyways, after Cornelius, the great Ian Holm, tries to object to this, they go ahead and do it anyway, and the planetoid actually just grows larger in size afterward and engulfs the spaceships. And we get our first view of the signature attack of this dark planet, which is making blood run down the middle of your forehead.
Yeah.
And so that you see that, and the general, like, as he's watching helplessly as the planetoid like approaches him, that trickle of blood starts running down his forehead, and it is very creepy. It
is pretty creepy.
Yeah. So every time that happens, like that really works. Like it's like barbecue sauce or chocolate syrup. It kind of looks like
chocolate sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something like that. But it is so gross and creepy, and it gives you it gives you the sense of how this thing just oozes evil so much that you just spontaneously bleed in its presence. I mean, that's dark.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Korben Dallas's apartment.
Yeah.
And he's getting up. Like, this scene is orchestrated to make you have anxiety.
It is.
With the sounds and the alarms and the cat, and just this apartment is so much chaos. Mm-hmm. I just hated it. I was like, ugh, I hate this.
It's so stressful. Yeah. And so I would say, like, that is really good storytelling, visual storytelling and audio storytelling, because it's showing you in this New York of the future, 300 years in the future, how overstimulating everything is. You're constantly bombarded from the time you wake up with noise, because like this funk music starts blaring, his alarm clock is going off, the cat wants to be let in,
and we get an ad, a Ruby Rod commercial, which is a preview.
Foreshadowing. The storytelling in this movie is really good. This is a classic. I've been fine-tuning this story since I was 16 years old, because he has the whole shit planned out.
That's true. They have a token, like, I guess what they're trying to do is demonstrate how bizarro the future is, because he gets mugged at his door with a robber who has a like a picture on his head that mimics the hallway. So when you look out the viewing port, you just see the hallway, and then he's got a gun, and we get to see how badass Korben Dallas is. He's cool
under pressure, right?
Takes the gun and puts it in a bin filled with other guns that he's ostensibly taken from thieves,
from other muggers. Yeah. Other things that jump out are the 2 yellow circles on the wall that you place your hands in when the police are questioning you.
It's very police state. It's like Big Brother is watching.
It's so dystopian, but it's dealt with casually, right?
You just put your hands there.
Everyone lives in this world, and they're completely used to the chaos of it.
So this chaos, this accustomed to police state stuff. This is exactly how I feel when I go through the TSA. I'm like, these motherfuckers are having us all take off our shoes and shuffle along and looking at us with with their pervy scanners and this, everyone just accepts that this is the way things are, and we do, and so that's the future.
And it's a funny thing, when you go to other countries, you find that they don't have all of these.
Yeah, they don't do any of that.
They don't do any of the stuff we do, and these things don't actually make us safer. They are just about conditioning us to be compliant. No, watching this movie now, 25, and actually we haven't said this yet. This is why we're covering it. It's the 25th anniversary this month of this film. Yeah. 25 years later, you see how we're 25 years down the road to this future. Like,
oh yeah,
the New York of 300 years in the future is pretty believable.
Yeah, it's gnarly. The things I don't believe are efficient, anything, fast police response, that sort of thing. Right. Those are the parts I don't believe ever happen. Maybe I'm just cynical.
But, these heavily armored, sort of Judge Dredd cops that come, I think that's the direction we're headed there too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nixon and his war on drugs, that's the root of it. If you're curious, just look it up.
The machine that doles out his little cigarettes is also really a good thing, because it wants him to stop, so he gets 4 ultra short cigarettes a day
with these huge filters. I think that's hilarious.
Oh, the other thing is he gets a call from his dispatch, and we see he has all these sort of like military honors and stuff in his apartment. And the dispatch we learn he's a cab driver, and the dispatch is he's asking him about about his ex-wife and because he talks about the cat.
Yeah,
and he says, "Oh, you got back with your wife?" And he's like, "No," and it's the cat, and it's like, "Oh yeah, da 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 da." But we get that foreshadowing because he talks about wanting to meet the perfect woman.
Sure.
Right. He tells the dispatcher that. And the dispatcher wants him to bring the cab in for its routine maintenance. And I could say, as a driver, everyone hates this. Everyone hates having to bring their vehicle in and get it serviced, even though it's absolutely necessary, because you're without it for that period of time while it's away.
So you can't just do it while you're off work.
Sometimes, but, not for him, right? Because he's a cab driver. And it's like, I've never really understood why he doesn't want to bring it in, but now I get it. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I hate when it's like, we have to service your vehicle. It's like, well, when am I getting it back? What's wrong with it? What are you doing? Where are you taking it?
Yeah, I remember that when I was in the Army, when they would take my Humvee. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Just sit on the curb here and wait for you?
Like, no, you're going to drive this old busted one that's got a donut on it. So it sits with a Detroit lean.
Exactly. So, like, I like his kind of retro future style cab. It has, like, strong Bentley vibes. Maybe kind of some Rolls Royce Bentley looks to it. It's kind of cool. It's extremely stylized. This is a retro modern, retro future.
Yeah, retro futuristic. Yeah.
And that's a choice. They didn't try to make anything futuristic because they're all kind of bubble-ish cars and stuff. Nothing is sleek. There's nothing sleek in this movie, really.
No. And what struck me because he gets into his cab and he pulls out into traffic, as much as this movie does have influence from Star Wars, this movie turned around and then influenced Star Wars.
The prequels where they have like the flying car lanes and everything. There
is some scenes in that, like in the car chase in Coruscant, where
they were doing their homework on this movie.
I swear, even like Anakin is driving a cab, right? Like he hijacks a yellow cab and is driving it, and then dives out of it the way like that Lilu jumps out later out of the window, and it's like, oh damn, like, circular influence going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting. So then it kind of cuts over to the priest talking to the president, and he's like telling him about how this ultimate evil's goal is to destroy everything, but there's a way out. There's the 5 elements, and he tells him about the Mandashawans and all this stuff that they're going to arrive soon and bring the elements back. And basically the president is he's on board with it, and he says the Mandashawans can go ahead and they can land.
Yeah, because like just on cue, he tells them the Mandashawans are coming, and then the Mandashawans ask for permission to enter Federation space, and he's like, "Oh yeah, granted.
Yeah.
Get here." And then no sooner do they cross over into Federation space, then they are shot down by the Mangalore.
It's like. My opinion here is that the Mandashawans are weak as fuck. Their ships suck. They get just wrecked.
Yeah.
They are so slow they can't even not get crushed by a closing door. These are garbage alien allies.
A door that you have to assume they built too. Like they built a door that shuts at a speed
These are
they
some
can't.
Humpty Dumpty motherfuckers.
They really are, because they're egg shaped too.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I didn't have that reaction, but I also just can't dispute anything you're saying.
I mean, I would rather be allies with those mercenary dudes.
The Mangalore?
Yeah, the Mangalore seem way more badass.
And I'm pretty sure, talking about the Star Wars back and forth, there's no way that Mangalore and Mandalore aren't meant to rhyme with each other. It just must be the case.
Yeah. And they report back to Zord that they completed the mission, and we get to see Gary Oldman.
Yeah, just the back of his cool mohawked head.
He is he's excellent in everything he does.
No argument from me.
I mean, I'm just trying to think like what's my favorite Gary Oldman role, but that's really hard to nail down.
Jesus,
this one is amazing, but
Zorg is great. Commissioner Gordon,
yeah,
Sid Vicious. Fucking Dracula,
yeah, that might be one. You know what's funny is most of the people that made this movie really loved it in retrospect, like Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich. I watched the interview. It's a soft J. And Gary Oldman didn't love it. And
oh, really?
He said, "Yeah, it was all right, but I was singing for my supper because Luke funded my directorial debut movie, so I owed him this."
Oh, interesting. I watched the interview from him at Cannes when they were promoting it, I think. So he was still singing probably because he didn't seem down.
Oh, yeah.
He did mention that, though, that Luc Besson, well, for one, because he'd already done Leon the Professional with him. So he was like, I trust this guy. And then 2, he did produce his movie for him. So it's like, sure, I'll do it. Don't even need to see a script.
Yeah, it turns out we're going to make you this clownish, giggly geek, mustache-twirling bad guy.
Yeah, so someone described him as a nouveau riche dandy Hitler. And
I can see that.
And then Gary Oldman called him Bugs Bunny meets Ross Perot. and I thought funny. They're both very accurate of this character, but we'll meet him more a little bit later.
Yeah.
Vito Cornelius, after the ship gets shot down, basically the president's like, well, we don't need you anymore.
Oopsie.
Yeah. And then when they investigate the Mandashawan crash, they say there's one survivor. And then we see what they mean by one survivor is literally one severed hand.
One hand.
Yes. They have one hand, and it's got enough living tissue that they can recreate the being that it was attached to.
And then you go to this laboratory, and they're using the human cells, and the scientist is talking all this pseudoscience, like gobbledygook nonsense. Kind of reminded me of the whole, what was it? The Kong versus Godzilla or whatever, where the scientist is talking about all this stuff.
It's because they talk about, it's like a normal human has this many DNA strands. This one has 200 times as many DNAs.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah.
It's perfect in every way because of all the genes.
Yeah, more genes is more better. It reminds me of when they're explaining boom tubes. And I'm just like, whatever, guys.
It's very nonsense, but it's a cool scene, and it's one of the only digital effects in the whole movie.
Yeah, and I remember at the time seeing this, I thought this was dope as hell. I just thought this is next level. This was like...
It was 99... 1997, this is next level CGI.
Yeah, because it looks cool even to this day. I mean, it looks a little computery, but it's still cool.
Because it goes from the hand, and then it kind of piece by piece it builds the skeletons and then layers muscles on them. And
reminds me of Westworld. The intro.
That is the new version of that same scene. Yeah. It totally is like the opening of Westworld with 97 graphics, like PS1 Westworld.
Yeah, and it's got shades of it's got shades of Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of homages in this, or maybe, I don't know, circular homages. But yeah,
actually, this is like the exact same time as Ghost in the Shell, so I don't think it's that can be an homage.
Unless Luc Besson was a fan of the comic.
I bet he was. Yeah, he would be, because he's a geek.
He's a dweeb.
He's a comic book guy. He would definitely read Ghost in the Shell for sure.
You have to at that point.
Okay. Anyways, the perfect being, although they've been calling it a man all this time, is actually a beautiful 19-year-old girl with flaming orange hair.
Yeah, they
Big
talked
surprise.
about how they were going to try to do that hair, whether they were going to try to have it be computer animated, because they were talking about literal fire to make her even more elemental and less human. But they decided they would just do like a super red. And it was interesting because Mila Jovovich has dark hair naturally, and so her roots kept growing in dark, and they wanted them to actually look lighter, like a flame kind of gets lighter at the end of it.
It's bleached, and then the tips are dyed orange.
Yeah, and so they would daily peroxide her roots before and so she started losing her hair halfway through, so they actually had to replace it all with a wig.
Which is why when they get to Lost in Paradise, she's wearing a wig the whole time.
Yeah.
You definitely can see it, but they did it for an understandable reason.
Yeah, because they totally screwed her up. And one thing that I really liked about this is they were discussing it, and Mila was part of the discussion, how they were going to do the she married Luc Besson near this time, so she obviously was part of this. He's an old creeper on a teenager. I'm just going to say that. He's a groomer.
It's a very common not that this is excusing it, but so this is a very common thing that happens where a director is making a movie. The current wife is in the film, and the next wife is the star of the film. And you actually sort of watch in real time as he pushes his wife aside and focuses on a different woman. And it's a very weird meta thing to watch when you know that it happens, because his current wife plays the diva.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's literally a scene where he's cutting back and forth between him, and then he kills his wife, and his future wife survives. And it's like, whoa, you're working through some stuff in this movie, bro.
Yeah,
That's
for
weird.
Sure. Yeah, they were talking about the costume stuff, and all the costumes were designed by the same guy.
Yeah.
Korben Dallas was his name?
Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Yeah, so he does every extra, Ruby Rod, the flight attendants, the cops. He designed all of it. But one thing that he didn't have fully mapped out was how they were going to do the post-body construction test tube scene, because they knew they couldn't just have her in there fully nude. That wouldn't really work.
As much as we'd like to have this girl nude as long as possible, we want to hit that PG-13.
Yeah, the whole Ghost in the Shell style, where they decided to make it really over-sexualized. They didn't do that here. Sort of. They put her in bandages, which ultimately are more covering than a bikini, I think.
And it was her idea. Importantly,
she's the one that thought that was the best way to go.
Yeah. Which I really I liked that detail. I saw that same interview, probably, or a similar one, where she talked about
the Vogue interview.
Yeah.
And
a word that comes up in my notes just over and over again is iconic, because there's so many iconic costumes in this.
That one, and then the orange
but also
latex one.
For the other characters too, like you
Korben
said.
Dallas's
His orange
shirt,
tank top. Yeah. All Ruby Rod's costumes are iconic. You still, mainly Lilu, any convention you go to, if whatever Comic-Con happens this weekend in your town,
you'll find some
there's
young
at least
lady
two
as a
Lilus.
Lilu. Yeah.
At least two, probably more. At least one in a bandage and one in the other costume.
Yeah.
So something about this really stuck with the public.
Yeah, it looks so fake, like the like fake modern of the time, like how you have plastic clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel, nothing is natural about these fibers, etc.
Yeah, I think that there was this, and Gautier's a big part of that. This merger of the bondage fetish kink aesthetic into haute couture, high fashion, right? So you're taking this rubber clothes and stuff because like Zorg wears a full on rubber outfit.
Yeah. Could you imagine how uncomfortable that would be?
Oh, dude, just
you'd be sweating balls.
Because I remember in the 90s when lots of bands wore like rubber shirts and stuff, and there were literally rivers of sweat running out of their sleeves.
Yeah.
Lux Interior from the Cramps fully douched me in the face with his sweat one time.
Oof. He's a gnarly old dude. Did you get high from it?
No, I was lucky to not yak from it. Like not get hepatitis from it.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Lux Interior. I don't think he died of hepatitis.
All right. So,
anyways, let's moving along. The general is a total creep. He wants to take pictures of the naked girl.
I just want to say I hate this general through the whole movie. He sucks.
He does suck, but I love him as sort of the comic relief butt of the joke.
Sure.
But it's because he's so terrible, right? That you like when all the bad things happen to him.
Because he's a typical like cop / military prick who abuses his power and doesn't see anything wrong with it.
Right.
And so I love it when he gets his ass beat.
Yeah, because here he comes up and he's being really condescending to Lilu while she's in this tube, and he's talking about her working on her communication skills, and she punches through the glass and knocks him out.
Yeah,
and it's just like the first of many times something bad befalls him, and they're always funny.
Yeah, I like that she then busts through the copper foil wall. What the hell, dude?
Literally just jumps through the foil wall, yeah.
And then she kind of just jumps out of the building and ends up falling into this taxi.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie The Fugitive?
Yes.
So it reminded me of that because she's at the end of this tube.
Yeah, where he jumped out or whatever.
Yeah, and she jumps out and dives down vertically into New York traffic. And that's one of those shots that I feel like George Lucas is like, oh, I'm taking that one. You took enough from me, Besson.
I would like to say a note on Jovovich's acting in this whole part. She doesn't say any words in English, and it's almost all physical acting, and it's all really excellent. Yeah. She conveys so much without using words. She does it with like just being completely frantic and I don't know. She just does a great job. I think from this movie on, she's just been a great action movie hero.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of it. So you mentioned she speaks a language that her and Luc Besson created.
I'm sure they had many hours bonding over speaking in their secret language together.
Hey, when you're grooming a young girl,
yeah, because she had sent in she had done an audition tape. I think it was in LA or something,
right,
where she was wearing like 70s fashion, like chunky heels and like a big plaid coat or whatever, and she couldn't have been 19 at the time, so she was at 17, 18, and then later on when he encountered her in London, I think, and she was looking good, like at a pool,
like a model,
yeah, like the model that she is, he was like, oh, you sent me a reel, fucking creepster. Is it just because he's French? Sorry, French people, but.
I mean, I could say. I mean, this was my observation in the teen years. Any sort of accent was just an instant go signal to every girl I knew. Would just fall in love with anyone they met with an accent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that would be true for her because her family immigrated from Ukraine.
She's Ukrainian, right? She shouldn't be so charmed by
her family. Her parents speak with accents.
Yeah, but not a Romance language accent.
Oh.
French is different.
I mean, it is.
No one thinks. I mean, it doesn't speak.
Go ahead and say it.
It doesn't seem not to speak ill of Ukraine because we're on their side right now, but no one thinks the Ukrainian accent is sexy.
All right, Nick goes on record anti-Ukraine. I myself am very pro-Ukraine.
I don't know how I got painted in this corner.
All right. So yeah, I just thought that this was her acting was superb.
Yeah.
And even as a 19-year-old young actor, she was killing it.
Yeah. She does these great things like she takes the breath at the end of a sentence instead of at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So everything she says sounds rushed and then and then she starts again and goes into the next thing. Mm-hmm. And like she's almost like feral. Like right before she attacks the general, she growls at him and just all these. There's a reason why girls still dress up like this girl.
Yeah, she's a really great character. Yeah. And so yeah, she falls into Korben's taxi, and he's like, almost gets in an accident, loses 4 points off his license, and she's like trying to communicate with him, mm-hmm. and then the cops come. This is unbelievable that they would respond this quickly.
Well, they were literally just chasing her.
Sure.
Because they were in the government building, right? Like these are like the federales.
Oh, okay. So these are the cops that work there.
Yeah, because you see, as we cut ahead, because the car chase ensues.
Yeah,
you see the regular street cops who
are completely incompetent,
and they decline to when the call goes out to join the chase. They're like, "Fuck it," after lunch, and and they're not interested in it. So she's being pursued right now.
That was the Uvalde SWAT team right there.
Yeah.
Sorry, David.
Yeah, to bring the real world into it. It's true, right? You see these guys, all the best armor, all the best weapons, don't want to engage with this girl. So yes, very Uvalde police force.
And so, yeah, she eventually is able to look at this thing like an advertisement, and she asks Korben for help.
Oh, it's so sad.
And he is a sucker. He can't say no. And so he knows he's going to lose his license, and she begs him for help. He's trying to resist. He's like, sorry, just gotta do the thing. And then he's like, fuck it. And then just runs away. Has this cool scene. I kind of like the car scene. It did really remind me of the Star Wars prequel,
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
But this is several years earlier.
I figured McDonald's must be a sponsor of this movie because we get a lot of McDonald's in this.
Yeah, and Jean-Paul Gaultier made futuristic McDonald's uniforms. I think
Does anybody eat at McDonald's anymore? Like, I haven't eaten it in just a decade.
Yeah, no, me either. But I think many people eat at McDonald's. McDonald's is eternal. But I don't think McDonald's understands the way they're being used in the film. Because I think someone in marketing is really patting themselves on the back, like, oh, we got this huge product placement in a big action movie. But they're being used to express the dystopia of the world.
About how, it's not a positive portrayal.
No, it's like in this world of
this is the Taco Bell of Demolition Man.
Yeah. After the franchise wars, all restaurants are Taco Bell.
I actually really like that movie. It's really good.
Demolition Man's a good movie.
Is that a cyberpunk movie technically? Okay.
That's a cyberpunk movie for sure.
Is this a cyberpunk movie technically?
I think so. I think at least the stuff in New York is cyberpunk.
Yeah, for sure. The desert stuff, not so much.
Right.
The space stuff, not so much.
Right. That's why I said Cyberpunk Space Opera.
Oh, okay.
It's another genre mashup. Anyways, yes, McDonald's, the cops, What more do we want to say about this?
I mean, yeah. So eventually he brings her to Vito Cornelius. She actually tells Korben to go there. He figures it out, gets the name out of the phone book because that exists.
Yeah, those are some of the weird anachronisms. There's a phone book. Radio stars are really big as opposed to podcasters, which is what everyone listens to.
Us, right?
Yeah. But
or it would actually probably be YouTubers.
Yeah.
Those are celebrities.
I don't want to brush over this because Lisa called it out as something that really grated on her watching it now as an adult, is how much he doesn't consider her in the back of the cab, because she basically gets shaken around like a pea while he's running from the cops, and he doesn't check on her until much later while she's all beat up.
Oh, I think almost. I mean, yeah, very much, and that is backed up in the next scene in there when he tries to kiss her while she is unconscious, because Korben Dallas does not respect consent. He doesn't actually think of her as a person, and I think throughout this entire movie, he basically just objectifies her.
Yes.
She's more perfect when she can't talk because he can just imagine. I think she's like a symbol to him, not actually a person.
Yeah, we'd have to get here eventually. Bruce Willis is 42. She's 19. This whole thing is very gross.
How old was Luc Besson at the time?
Younger than Bruce Willis, but considerably older than her. 30 in his 30s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, definitely kind of gross.
Gross. So anyways, but he does get her.
He could be her dad.
Literally.
Oof.
Yeah. It's a bad look.
Yeah.
It's a bad look.
I mean,
luckily we're finally starting to move away from this. Like,
I mean, and there's not a sex scene in this. So
yeah, there is.
Oh, there is. Oh, gross.
Anyways, on the good side, while Vito Cornelius is getting on his priestly raiments and Korben Dallas is assigned to be a creep, Leeloo Dallas, not yet, but eventually, pulls out his iron and puts the gun to his head and starts telling her rules about consent.
Yeah, she says, "Not without my permission."
Yep.
Later, he gets the translation. The priest is like, "Oh yeah,"
and he knows better. Like, the thing, he says, "Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. I know that. I know better." And it's like, yeah.
It's like
knowing better.
It's like a dog that snatches food off the counter, and when you admonish it, it looks real sad and whatnot. But you know damn well it would do it again. That's Korben Dallas right then.
Korben Dallas ain't nothing but a dog.
Yeah,
that's probably the episode title.
It's bad. So basically, and then the priest makes him leave. He's like, yeah, you need to leave.
Yeah.
We got our little supreme being here that we got to do some stuff with her.
Yeah.
Help her save the world.
Yeah, and he goes home,
lies to his boss.
His cab is poked full of holes,
just destroyed.
Yeah, his license is canceled because he only had 5 points left on it. Yeah, and Finger at dispatch calls. And he's just enchanted. He tells her he met the perfect woman, and her name was Leeloo.
Yeah, I want to say I don't like the phone conversation scenes. There's two particular people. One is his boss, Finger or whatever. That's just whatever. That's just so that Korben Dallas can like demonstrate stuff. But the other one I hate is his mother,
his nagging mother.
That is an annoying trope. That your mom has to be annoying, that you have to dislike her, or she has to be shitty to you. Mm-hmm. I hate that trope. It's kind of like only boomers like those jokes, like where the guy would rather not spend time with his wife. Like it's boomer humor, and I don't like it. It's stupid. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why do you not like these people?
And it's true. It's like 300 years in the future, and it is a very boomer sort of thing, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, all this retro stuff appeals to boomers, and the bad naggy humor and stuff. Yeah, this is definitely a boomer movie.
Fair point. By boomers for boomers. No,
it really
it's by boomers for Gen Xers. I think
for their kids.
That's the target audience. Yeah, but it is still very boomer humor.
Like, look at how edgy and modern we are with our Humpty Dumpty bots.
Meanwhile, Lilu Dallas is binging. I can't help but call her that, even though it hasn't happened yet in the story.
You just spoiled the movie.
I know. Lilu is binging on chicken and Google. Like she's teaching herself all of human history with the internet, and just going letter by letter through everything.
And they ask her, like, the priest asks her, like, she's learning the history of the last 5,000 years, and the priest is asking her, where's the box with the elements? And she's like, oh, they've been stolen.
Yeah. And there's a lot of these scenes where there's two parallel scenes that inform each other, and we cut back and forth. It's very MTV quick cut, but I like all these scenes a lot, because we start as she explains that the things were stolen. We cut over to, he's like, who would do such a thing? And then we cut over to Zorg dealing with the Mangalore.
And he's demonstrating a smart gun from Cyberpunk 2077. It's so good.
It is. And the thing that I thought of was Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2. Like, kind of everything but the accent, they just took wholesale from this character. This is Justin Hammer.
Yeah.
Or Justin Hammer is Zorg, since this character predates it by 20 years or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, this is really great. And then they give Zorg the box, and turns out to be empty.
Yeah, cut to Lilu laughing because they sent the stone somewhere else.
Yeah.
It was a decoy box.
And Zorg is super mad, and he fucks him up a little bit, but he agrees to give them 1 crate worth of guns.
Yeah.
The Mangalores. And Lilu basically says that the stones are with someone they can trust.
Yeah.
We don't know who that is yet.
And Zorg didn't give the full presentation on the guns, and he gives them these guns with no knowledge that there's a self-destruct function.
And it's a huge red button that would be really easy to bump.
Yeah. And so he just knows they're going to push it and blow themselves up. So he gives them the crate of guns with the expectation that he's killing all of them.
Turns out they're too tough. They don't die. They just get fucked up.
It's hard to blow up a Mangalore. We also brushed over that he, at the start of this scene, he fired 1 million cab drivers, which sets up Korben Dallas being out of a job a bit later.
Okay. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
We know in the future there are no cab drivers. It's all Uber and Lyft and whatever.
Right? That's what, the idea that there's actual, like, cabbies with, like, cab companies and stuff in the future. Yeah, that's a little unbelievable now. That's one of the things. There's a few things.
Yeah, and so, yeah, then we learn that Korben won a trip to Floston Paradise.
Yeah. Well, not before Lilu says that that's where the stones are.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, yes.
What's her name? Flaga Laguna or something? Flava Laguna?
Flava Laguna. I always just call her the Diva, because it's easier.
Yeah, she has the stones. The stones are in Floston, and the Diva has them. She's going to hold a concert, so you get there and get the stones from her.
Yeah, and we know... actually, yeah, we're cutting ahead because we're skipping over Zorg spying on the president, because his right-hand man, played by Tricky from Massive Attack...
Oh, that's true.
...pilots the cockroach into the president's office.
Yeah, and then basically he learns about where the stones are at, and I love it when he just destroys the cockroach drone while it's being piloted. That's great.
Yeah. There's this, I don't know what you call it, the illusion of a complicated plot going on here. There's actually a very simplistic plot. But you get the impression that people are scheming, and there's all these different layers to it, but it is all very A, B, C.
This is linear as fuck.
Yeah.
There's no depth here.
But they dress it up in such a way that it doesn't seem as shallow as it is. It's like one of those things, it looks like a pool you could swim in pictures, but it's only like 3 inches deep.
Yeah, and then Zorg sends for the priest, and the priest is talking to him, and it's kind of one of those cut back and forth scenes with the priest and all that. And Zorg puts a cherry in his water, and then drinks the water and chokes on the cherry.
Yeah, he gives this whole villain explanation about how destruction's actually good for life because it creates jobs and stuff.
Basically, whenever you kick over an anthill, then the ants have to rebuild it, and so all those ants are employed.
Yeah, perfect villain logic. But like you said, he ends up choking on a cherry. So Cornelius gets to give a judgy a monologue to him. They both monologue to each other, and then ultimately he saves Zorg's life by smacking him.
He
on the
really
back.
should not have.
It'd be a shorter movie if he didn't. And that's not a great way to stop someone from choking. The Heimlich maneuver is much better.
Sure, I mean,
because of that, Zorg doesn't kill Vito Cornelius. He sends him on his way. He spares him, and he gives Tricky the cause he has to find these stones within 24 hours.
Yeah, and the president demands from the general that I need your best agent. We're going to send him to Floston. Mm-hmm. And so we have it lined up that Zorg is sending Tricky, and the president is getting the general to get his best agent, who we learn is, of course, retired Major Korben Dallas.
Yeah, and we learn it because of that annoying phone call, like you said, from the mom. Mm-hmm. Because she calls... I want to get to that. I don't want to cut over the really cute scene with the window delivering Chinese food guy.
Sure.
Because I love this. When we go back to Korben, he has like a floating junk sitting outside his window, and he's eating noodles like that he's getting right from the guy. And it's really charming.
Food trucks scene.
Where he just comes right to your house.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Sudden this dystopia is not looking so bad.
Your closet-sized apartment can be visited by a food truck. Food junk.
And he gets a letter in the mail, and the old Asian guy he's like, you should open that. It's gonna be good news. And he bets him his lunch that'll be good news. And when he opens it, it's the notice that he got fired from the cab company. He's like, well, at least I got free lunch out of this.
And the food guy's like, yeah, see, there's something good happened.
Yeah, good philosophy.
And then his mom calls, and she's like whining and alluding to like how she needs to go on a trip and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out she wants to go with him on his free trip to Floston Paradise.
Which he is sure he has not won a free trip.
And then, of course, the general and his henchmen and jacked Princess Leia show up, and they're like, this is your wife. She's from the East Germany Olympic team, swim team.
Right, yeah. Major Iceborg. Yeah, so they inform him that he's won this contest that he didn't enter, and he's going to be going to Floston Paradise and yada, yada, yada. And Major Iceborg is going to be accompanying him as his wife. And she's a big, sturdy gal, and it's played for laughs, and it's a little bit of a groaner. I remember thinking it was much funnier in the past than I do now.
Yeah, I was always like, her, his wife, here.
Yeah, and now it's like, ugh, bad joke.
Yeah, that's not cool.
And she has I was looking at her IMDb. She has a very interesting career of playing essentially that same character, the big sturdy woman. Julie T. Wallace.
And so then the priest and so Lilu shows up at the door, and he looks out and he sees her, and then so he's like, oh yeah, I gotta let her in, and has everybody else hide.
Yeah, he cooks up this story about he's met this girl and he wants to marry her, but she hates the military because the military is what ruined his last life and not his bad behavior.
Yeah,
and so he has them all hide in the refrigerator, and he stuffs them all inside of it.
And then they come in, but actually the priest was hiding, and he has a gun, and they're going to mug him for his tickets to Floston Paradise.
Yeah, everyone is coming for these tickets to Floston Paradise.
And so that now we have 3 people trying to go there. We have Tricky, we have the priest's acolyte who's going to pretend to be Korben Dallas, so is Tricky, and then the real Korben Dallas.
Yeah. Everyone is planning to go on this ticket. Everyone is going to pretend to be Korben Dallas. That's
because that would totally work.
Mm-hmm. There's no TSA. This is a non 9/11 future, right?
Yeah.
Like where
traveling, you can just con your way onto a plane.
Yeah, it's a very like it's the future, but it's the 60s sort of thing.
This really is the 60s.
Yeah. So this is all going on, and then the Judge Dredd cops show up at the door, bang, 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 for Korben Dallas. So he has to hide Lilu. So he hides Lilu in the shower that's on top of the refrigerator because he lives
around
in a tiny apartment, like you said. And he puts Vito Cornelius in the self-making bed and slides him into the wall.
Yeah, and they're like, "Are you Korben Dallas?" And he says, "I am a meat popsicle." Or they say, "What's your name?" And he just says,
are you designated as human? And he says, "Negative, I'm a meat popsicle."
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, like that's one of those lines that has stuck around. I saw a t-shirt the other day of a pink popsicle leaning up against the two yellow circles. And it's like that meat popsicle thing has stuck.
Yeah, it had legs. I mean,
and I still don't understand it. Like, I don't know what it means. I don't get it at all. But
yeah,
for whatever reason, it's stuck in the consciousness.
Yeah, and so then I guess somebody had done some hacking or whatever, and some other dude got flagged as Korben Dallas, and the cops capture him.
He had one of Korben Dallas's business cards on his front door because he has those little cab-shaped business cards that he hands out.
Yeah.
So he at some point stuck the business card on that guy's door, and when they tell him to put his hands on the circles, he says, "Smoke you," and gives him the finger. And so they net gun him.
Yeah. They're like, okay, well, you're the guy. Mm-hmm. And turns out they work for Zorg.
Because Tricky called in a tip that Korben Dallas was smuggling iridium or something like that.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
They're trying to make this seem really complex, but it's not really very complex.
It's not, but it feels like it, right? Like it feels like there's a lot of shit going on because as the cops are dragging their Korben Dallas out, they get jacked by the Mangalore who kidnapped the Korben Dallas.
Kidnaps the fake Korben Dallas, and then they put on the weird mask and pretend to be the fake Korben Dallas.
Yes. So now we have...
Pull a total recall on us.
We've got at least 4 people who are planning on going on this trip as Korben Dallas and his +1.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
This is the premise. This is the bit.
And then... basically he lets the people out of like the priest out and Lilu out, and it looks like the military people are frozen to death.
Yeah, because he lets Lilu out first, and the shower has an auto wash function, so it sanitizes itself.
Yeah, she's
been in a dishwasher this whole time. So he gives her a towel and he lets Vito Cornelius out, and he's suffocating in the plastic wrapped bed. Mm-hmm. So
should have left
all of these hiding holes are potentially lethal, is what it seems like. But Cornelius brains him in the head with one of his military awards and takes the tickets.
Yeah.
Which is what leads him to take the mission from the frozen general, who's fine. We see him later. He survived, but he definitely looks dead in this scene.
Yeah, he definitely looks dead. And so the priest ends up sneaking his way onto the plane his own way. But there's a big complicated scene here in the airport.
Yeah.
It becomes like a who's on first. Like, I'm Korben Dallas and they're Korben Dallas and this is my wife. No, this guy was standing in line for me. I'm the real Korben Dallas.
Yeah. So let's see.
It's a very Slim Shady scene.
They get to the airport, which is filled with these mountains of trash because there's a sanitation strike.
Well, I mean, that's just the way that it is in cities now.
That's the future. It's not the future we want, but it's the one we're going to get.
That's the real world we live in right now.
Yeah. And so Cornelius says the plan is his assistant David is going to be Korben Dallas, Lilu will be his wife, and they'll go. He can't do it because...
And David is sweating bullets.
Yeah, he's, a seminary student, essentially, and he's not one for breaking the law or doing this stuff. He's not set up for skullduggery or espionage. And at least Vito Cornelius has the good sense. Is he in Home at Night?
I don't know. It's a good question.
He should be. For being Bilbo Baggins, he should be in Night.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We'll say Surrey and Home. I'll knight him if the Queen has it.
We can just knight Bilbo Baggins.
He has the good sense that he's not age appropriate for Lilu.
Oh.
Because he says, David will go because I'm too old to be your husband. So he at least knows
But Korben doesn't think that someone more than twice their age can be...
He's a 42-year-old man that bleaches his hair.
That's true. If you are a 42-year-old man out there and you're listening, do not bleach your hair.
Yeah. It's undignified. Don't wear a backless tank top. It's undignified. But he has the back for it. He looks okay in the tank. You can wear it to the gym or when you're jogging. There's certain places you can wear it. Don't wear it.
Not to the airport.
Not to the airport. It's not appropriate. Anyways, as you said, David goes up there, puts his multipass with his name, David, on it into the slot, is still going to get on the plane, but the actual Korben Dallas comes up and is like, oh, thanks for holding my spot, basically.
Yeah.
And so they get loaded onto the plane. Right behind them, the Mangalore show up and say, they're Korben Dallas.
And then the disguise starts failing. And it's like glitching out.
His hologram thing or whatever is showing his alien face. And she does a scan on him and sees they're Mangalore. And Mangalore have a very bad reputation because they're instantly flagged. Mangalore are always on the no-fly list. It's like
they're like Gamorreans in Star Wars. They're just bad dudes.
No, yeah. So, they go to try and regroup, but the cops are already coming.
Yeah, and then finally Tricky tries to get on the plane,
right?
And they're like, Korben Dallas already checked in, but I'm Korben Dallas.
Yeah, and he slams on the plexiglass,
and then guns drop out of the ceiling.
And the yellow circles again. It's like this whole being detained by the police and having guns pointed at you is just standardized everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big old clusterfuck, and it's pretty funny. I still think all these scenes are funny.
Yeah. I generally like the airport scene.
Yeah, and when we get on the plane, Korben and Lilu are immediately separated because Korben, as the winner of this contest, has to go be greeted by Ruby Rod. Mm-hmm. And we are introduced to the incomparable Chris Tucker. And this was my first introduction to him. I saw this before Friday, even though Friday came out a couple years before this.
Yeah, he's wearing this leopard print suit, like skin tight. He's got his hair is kind of like a unicorn horn, but a tube.
Yeah, it's
off
like
his forehead,
platinum blonde. It's like, and actually, I'm stealing this from a YouTube I watched, but it's like Egon from the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
if you saw the Ghostbusters cartoon, he had that blonde hair that came out in like a tube in the front of his head.
Yeah, and he is so over the top, obnoxious radio host,
mm-hmm.
and he's just going crazy and trying to interview Korben, who's just one or two word answers. He's just got nothing to say.
Yeah, yeah. What are the question? He asks him if he's excited, and he's like, thrilled, and just barely says it. And he doesn't think Korben is very good radio.
He's not.
The black polyester with leopard trim.
Mm-hmm.
If you look really hard, you can probably find a picture of me wearing a shirt that looks like that around this same time. In 1997, I was definitely checking his entourage for fashion cues. Not so much him. I'm not meant to be a Ruby Rod, but I can be one of the guys.
One of
or
his
at
buddies.
Least, at age 19, I thought I could.
Yeah. And the flight attendant uniforms are hypersexualized,
mm-hmm.
and they're all designed by the same French designer.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me how those flight attendants are hypersexualized and whatnot, even more. I think this really is a vision of how a boomer sees the future, because, back in the 70s and
mm-hmm.
80s or whatever, flight attendants, there was that whole idea that they were like stewardesses, were these sexy ladies in the sky or whatever. And then I think that this would be a childhood fantasy of a 16-year-old growing up in that era, when really in the actual future, 20 odd years later,
mm-hmm.
25 years later, it's not like that at all. Like, it's the opposite of that.
And it's it's now flight attendant is, I mean, it's still probably majority young women, but it's gender diverse, age diverse. It's not like this. It is like, it's a retro futurist fantasy.
Yeah, for sure.
So just some
16-year-old fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. There is a lot of sexy ladies in this. All the ladies are sexy.
Yeah.
It's originally they wanted Prince for the role, and he turned it down because the costumes were too feminine.
Huh.
Which, I mean, just seeing some of the costumes he's worn, that seems very odd. But he was a really religious guy, and he kind of had that swing sometimes where he would always like kind of, he'd be gender bendy for a stretch of time, and then he would not.
And I think back to church for a while.
I think they caught him in a time when he was not feeling that. And then allegedly they also looked at Lenny Kravitz for this part.
Huh.
And like, I just can't picture anyone else but Chris Tucker doing it.
The thing is I think if Prince or Lenny Kravitz had done it, it would have been that he's really cool, not so much that he's really obnoxious, which is what Ruby Rod was.
Yeah, Ruby Rod is really over the top, but everyone thinks he's sexy and cool.
But he's not, though. When you watch it, he doesn't seem sexy and cool, whereas I think if Lenny Kravitz had done it, he would have been.
So what's better? What's better?
Being actually cool?
It's funnier if he's not, and they think he is.
I don't actually think he's funny, though.
Ooh, ouch. Okay.
I think he's obnoxious.
Yeah. Well, you and Korben Dallas, as both being boomers, you both
definitely. I remember 1997 when I was 42.
Yeah, because Korben Dallas does not think Ruby Rod is funny, and he actually chokes him and pushes him up against the wall, and basically he's like, I'm on vacation and I'm trying to not be bothered.
Yeah.
Are we clear?
I don't agree with putting your hands on someone, but I definitely do think that you should set expectations. I'm very firm with that. I say things like, do not talk to me. Don't touch me.
I've seen you put that hold on some of not
when I was a kid, right? But I think Korben Dallas has the right of it. Ruby Rod is obnoxious and he's ruining his vacation.
Free vacation. It's actually not a vacation. It's a mission.
Hey, you got to take your joys where you can.
So they get escorted to their bunks. They're reunited and they're escorted to their bunks. And they have like a sleep mode that just turns on and knocks you out. Mm-hmm. And I really wish like long flights had something like this, because traveling to Japan and back, things like that, I was desperate to sleep, and I can't sleep sitting in a plane.
Yeah, I really can't either. It's really, really hard because the thing that sucks about that, not to get too off into the weeds, is when you're flying to like Japan or something like that, mm-hmm. It sucks when you can't sleep on the plane, because then it means the first day of your vacation when you get there just sucks balls, because you're utterly so exhausted. Yeah. Like when we went to Tokyo, all we did on the first day was make it to our hotel, relax, get something to eat, venture out of the hotel to go somewhere nearby to get some food and mm-hmm. stuff at a little Family Mart or whatever. And then we just came back and slept. So it sucked that it was like we missed the first day because we were just totally destroyed from that. I agree. This is a desirable part of the future.
Yeah. Little pods that put you to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Benadryl, that would do it. It'll knock you out.
Yeah, but this seems to have less side effects. I always have a hard time if I actually take drugs. I have a harder time. Like my next day, I'm still sleepy. Like mm-hmm. I just want to keep sleeping.
So somewhere in here, Lilu tells Korben that she's the fifth element, the supreme being.
Yeah, it's right before they knock him out.
Yeah,
because he's basically telling her how he saved her. She would have gotten a lot of trouble if she had come here without him. And he's kind of given her the kind of dad talk.
I'm the older guy and you're my prey. I'm going to do what I want with you, little thing.
Yeah.
Just kind of nasty guy.
And she tells him, like you said, don't worry, I'll protect you. I'm the fifth element. I'm the supreme being. And then the flight attendant knocks him out. Like, before he can be like, hold on. I'm a retired major from the army. And there's a whole, like, there's a montage with, Ruby Rod, demonstrating his cunning linguist skills with the flight attendant, while Vito Cornelius sneaks on board the plane, and the ground crew burn tribbles off of the landing gear
and replace like uranium rods.
Yeah, I guess because it's an interstellar plane. It's not just a jet.
Yeah,
it's more like a space shuttle.
It's a spaceship. Yeah.
And the plane takes off for Floston Paradise. Back in the airport, Tricky has to call Zorg, and I just call him Tricky. In the credits, I think he's called Right Hand.
Yeah, he doesn't even get a name.
He doesn't get a name. Tricky he is. Tricky he shall be. Tricky has to call Zorg, and Zorg blows him up.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, because Zorg is so evil.
Yeah, he's like, I'm very disappointed. and
he kind of has like almost a George W. Bush sounding accent, or maybe it's Mike Huckabee. He sounds like one of those guys.
Because Oldman said it was during the presidential campaign, so this would have been Clinton, Bush, Perot.
Oh, okay.
So Pappy Bush.
That's right. It sounds like Perot.
He would have been here in Pappy Bush too if he's watching the debates. And so it's conceivable there's a little Bush, a little Perot in there, a little Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, I like that. And so at some point, Zorg is talking to the great evil aliens on the phone, and they make him bleed chocolate from his head.
Yeah, because the planet has been sucking in communication satellites for a while now. I guess we've skipped over that.
Sure. Because it's not that interesting. It's a planetoid.
Yeah, so it's been sucking in communication satellites, and the reason it's been doing this is so it could make a long-distance call, and it calls Zorg. And it has the really cute nickname of Mr. Dark. Mr. Dark is on the line. And
oof.
And Zorg tries to extort the embodiment of evil for more money, which I just thought was a pretty baller move.
I mean, capitalist gonna capitalist.
Yeah, he's like, talking to there's been complications and my fee has tripled, and the evil planet tells him, it's like, money is no object. It's like, it's going to destroy the earth, right?
Like, what are you going to get out of this? I guess you can go to Floston Paradise or some other planet.
I guess that's the scheme. I guess it's always been hard for me to quite grasp what Zorg plans to get after the Earth is destroyed. But there is interstellar travel and there's colonies. We have federated space, so he's just calling the Earth a wash, right? Like it's a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think he's just, this place sucks, gonna just do better somewhere else.
Yeah. So he assures Mr. Dark he will personally acquire the stones.
So then they get back to the ship. They arrive at the cruise ship in Floston Paradise. It's just a flying cruise ship.
It is a flying cruise ship, and they have the welcome like when you would go to Hawaii in the 60s.
Yeah.
Like there's hula dancers and guys playing ukulele and everyone gets lays. And I thought, actually, now that as we talk about it out loud, there's lots of 60s shit.
Yeah.
Like it's the vibe. This is futuristic 1960s in every.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, they find the priest is hiding in an electrical panel.
Mm-hmm.
They take Korben to his room and his mom calls. The not funny gag continues to not be funny.
We get at least one call. Yeah. He asks about the diva's performance, and the consigliere tells him that he has front row tickets because he's the honored guest and he's going to be sitting next to Ruby Rod, and it's so exciting. Yeah. And then he has like a whole like wardrobe full of tuxedos in there for his evening wear. And so he's all set. Lilu, when the diva arrived, Lilu subtly slipped out to go meet up with her.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's kind of spooky and gothy and weird.
Yeah. And she has a big entourage too.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her retainers sees Lilu and goes over and tells her, the diva's glad that you're here, and after the performance, she'll give you the stones.
Yeah, why? Why not just then? I guess because she has to cut herself open.
Yeah, well, don't spoil that. It's a big reveal. And so Korben is escorted into the opera house by Ruby Rod, who gives him the rundown of all of the prestigious guests there at the I
gotta say, this
opera.
is Ruby Rod's better outfit. It's like black velvet, and it has like roses on the collar.
You like that one better?
Yeah, I like this one.
Well,
it's got more class.
I like the leopard one.
One is goth and one is punk. So yeah. I like the goth one.
Yeah, the black with roses. I can see that. I like them both. I like Chris Tucker.
I like Chris Tucker too. I think he's really funny. I just really don't like these kind of super in your face media personalities. Mm-hmm. They aggravate me.
It's very much, if you think of it like a live action anime or something.
Oh yeah. The guy who yells all the time. They can't talk. They only can yell.
Yes, totally.
I hate that.
He's playing this archetype. But even if you hate the archetype, he's doing
he's doing great. I have nothing against Chris Tucker. I just think that character is just ugh.
I would have predicted that. So they get escorted to their seats. The Mangalore are in position. They've got some of their hologram guys out there in the crowd as maitre d's, and then just the whole squad with their smart guns in the back room. And then the diva arrives and gives her performance. And she's legitimately like awe-inspiring. No one had seen her in the makeup. They held this back so that when she went up there and performed, it was literally the first time anyone had seen her or heard the song, etc. And so
I got real reactions.
So they could capture that real reaction where people were like, "Whoa, we just saw something."
And the actual vocalist is Inva Mula, who's an Albanian opera singer in real life. But yeah, the song starts off like classic opera. It's really good, and then it becomes kind of a dance pop opera.
Yeah, it's an aria. I don't recall which specific one, and then it goes into the original arrangement that it transitions over to, which YouTube is just loaded with people singing
covering this. Yeah. Vocalists showing that they can do it.
Yeah. It's like, so and so does the diva dance. And it's like, there's a million videos of people singing this. It's a very hard song. Like, she does some crazy runs in this.
And people really like this song. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not like something you just like listen to groove to, but it's like, it's just impressive music, like vocally.
And when, it leads into another one of these back and forth scenes, because when it gets to the diva dance part of it, we start cutting back and forth between her performance and Lilu fighting with the Mangalore, who are going to get the stones from the diva's hotel suite. And so it jumps back and forth, and the actress, Luc Besson's wife, and God, I swear I have her name. My Win is her name. She was really unhappy with the sequence because she learned this song and like this whole performance, and she knew she was going to get overdubbed with a different vocalist, but she didn't realize that so much of her performance would be cut so that it would cut back and forth with the action scene.
Oh yeah.
And so she felt like, I did this whole thing and no one has even really seen it. So when later, as this has become a cult classic and people would contact her about it and want to talk about the scene and stuff, she always kind of felt like, why? You never even see my performance. Why are people interested in this?
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, I can see it in my head with her dancing and singing and stuff. It's really good.
It's another one of those very iconic moments from the movie.
Yeah, I think that there are a few images that really stick out for this movie, and it's like the look of Lilu and Korben, Ruby Rod, and the diva, and Zorg. That, I think, just sort of their look, it really transcends the era.
Yeah, like Zorg looking over his shoulder back at the camera is the GIF you've seen a million times,
and the plastic head thing. But yeah, I think that, I mean, she's a Twi'lek and she's singing. It's what they do.
She's pretty close. She has more tentacles.
Sure. I mean, you know,
Twi'lek has 2
because there's some.
The diva has like 6.
There's intellectual property problems, but yeah, she was supposed to be a Twi'lek.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
So yeah, I thought that was really cool, and they're fighting, and I actually liked the cut back and forth. I thought that was rad. So yeah, I think that this scene where they're fighting and the thing going back and forth, it's interesting. And this is kind of where the movie becomes just sort of like an action fest.
Yo, totally. Because Lilu, she whoops ass on the Mongolor, and then Zorg shows up, and she tosses him the box, the second stone box, and then jumps up into the ventilation shafts, and he just starts blasting the ceiling, like trying to shoot her. And he does shoot her, right? Like, because she ends up getting wounded and just kind of staying up there in the ceiling. And the Mongolor, after they fail in their subterfuge of stealing the box sneakily, decide to hijack the whole ship, and so they attack the opera house part of the cruise ship.
Yeah, they attack the diva and all of that.
Yeah, and the diva gets shot. Ruby Rod is narrating the whole thing on the radio. So so the President Lindbergh and his
Who's
Oval
a
Office,
big fan.
Yeah, they all are listening to this to their cloak and dagger low key undercover operation be broadcast on the radio intergalactically. Zorg plants a bomb and makes his retreat. And the diva spills the beans to Korben. He gets her off the stage, and he's trying to get her stabilized. And she tells him what he needs to do. He needs to get the stones to Lilu, and he needs to protect her because she's more fragile than she seems, and she needs his help and his love. Yeah, and then she croaks.
Yeah. Radio listeners, you couldn't see Nick's acting. He turned his head to the side and said, He just died for you guys.
Yeah. Back on the ship, Zorg has gotten his second empty box.
Yeah. So at first I was like, no way he got fooled twice. And then I just thought, yeah, Zorg's kind of a fucking dingus.
Yeah. So he's got to pull a U-turn in his spaceship and return to full start.
And he has that look on his face. Like, I don't know, like if you leave for work and you get a goodly distance away and you realize you have to go home because you forgot something.
I don't have my badge.
Something important like your wallet or whatever. You're like, fuck me. And you just turn around and you rage drive home.
Well, I mean, because he literally set a bomb as he left. So it's like he has to get back with enough time to turn off the bomb that he set. So he's really given himself a time crunch.
Yeah, he's mad.
Yeah.
I really think that Zorg has a can-do attitude. He's a problem solver.
He's the best kind of villain, right? Because he's just absolutely unapologetically evil. And then also completely charming to where you just love him.
Yeah, he's like, if you want something done, do it yourself.
Yeah. And like he kills his henchmen. He does all of the most evil stuff. But you're like, he has like this southern accent and it's really charming and he's got a cool hairdo.
You know who would have done a really great Zorg if they couldn't get Gary Oldman? Walton Goggins.
I was thinking that same thing.
He's great at that charming bad guy.
He basically plays this exact same character in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where he's an arms dealer, and it's almost the same deal.
My favorite role for him is Righteous Gemstones.
Oh,
so
it is.
Good.
That's even better than Justified.
Yeah, he's so good. Anyway, different actor. So yeah, I mean, we get a big old fight scene here where they're, you've got Korben and Ruby fighting against the aliens, and the whole time Chris Tucker is shrieking and going crazy
and narrating.
And narrating, and then we finally learn that Mangalores won't fight without their leader, so he of course has to shoot the leader.
You were really concise in that. Because I wrote in my notes that there's too much in this sequence to describe everything.
Yeah.
So that is he diehards around the place, right?
Yeah, really. Killing
aliens, and he earns his paycheck in these few scenes. But ultimately the Mangalore, they take Cornelius hostage, and Korben just walks in and blasts the guy in the forehead. Into negotiation. End of hostage crisis, because they all just fold after that.
Yeah, I don't know why he cared about Vito Cornelius. He's kind of
he's important.
He's been a dick, and he stuck him up, and he kicked him out of the apartment. He's been nothing but shitty to Korben.
That's true, but he's always deserved it.
Has he always? I mean, he is a creeper creeping on a young lady who, and I think Vito's defending.
Yeah, so I think he knows. He always knows he's wrong. Like, I don't know if that makes it better or not. But he knows when he fucks up.
Yeah.
So he saves the priest, and then he goes, looks at the security cameras and figures out where Lilu is.
And she's badly wounded.
He gets her out of the ventilation shaft. Oh, we skipped over it. He literally has to dig the stones out of the diva's stomach because
she says, "The answer's in me."
Yeah, she smuggled the stones like cocaine mule style.
Yeah, I don't even want to sit here and speculate how she got him in, because those stones are big. Let's just say she's an alien. It was her marsupial pouch, and let's move on.
Anatomy is different. It is not even suggested she prison pocketed the 4 stones.
No, she marsupialed them. Yes. It was perfectly fine.
Clearly, all divas have that pouch.
Isn't there a thing like a diva cup? That's
a different thing.
Oh.
Unrelated. But, hey, marketing idea.
Diva pouch?
A diva cup, but you make it blue and you have like 6 tentacles on it. Yeah, and it's a diva cup for nerdy hippies.
Literally a diva cup.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Officially licensed.
I was thinking you could make a blue fanny pack with little tendrils and have it be your diva pouch.
Call us, Sony. We have ideas.
Merchandising.
Yeah, you're just letting this IP sit on the shelf, and we have all sorts of ideas. So they where are we at here? They discover the bomb. The bomb has 5 seconds.
Yeah, because Ruby Ra's like, Korben, there's a
come on, my man, Korben, my man. Yeah,
and there's 5 seconds left on the bomb.
Yeah, so they leave. They just barely brush past Zorg. That is as close as Gary Oldman and Bruce Willis come to sharing a scene together in the whole movie.
Huh?
Is when they get on an elevator and Zorg gets off. They're never together. Ever in the whole movie.
Well, I mean, that's okay.
It is. I think it's interesting. It's part of the reason why the movie feels different, because there's never like a thing where they have to have like a manly confrontation with each other. Like there's never that Al Pacino and De Niro Heat thing where they talk to each other. They just never even encounter each other. He goes to the room, turns off the bomb just in time for the Mangalore bomb to show up with 5 seconds left on the timer. He's fucked, but our heroes get away on their shuttle.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's typical. There's a clock. Mm-hmm. They'll beat the clock because they're the heroes. But, it's fun, and they get away.
Yeah, and the president and his party, they all celebrate.
And they're like cracking like wine and champagne and stuff.
Yeah.
Well early.
Yeah.
The ultimate evil is still literally sitting right there.
Yeah. And the Dark Planet, which we're just now finding out that it's called.
Yeah.
The Dark Planet actually accelerates when they get away with the stones. Like it's like
because Zorg failed.
Yeah, our schedule has just moved up because now it's a race. The Dark Planet wants to get to Earth before they get to Earth. And they tell him...
go to Egypt.
Yeah, well, they tell him they have 1 hour and 58 minutes. And Bruce Willis tells the president, call you in 2 hours. Hangs up the phone like a real cool guy.
Yeah. Bruce Willis's one-liners, I'm not into it.
He's no Schwarzenegger.
No. And so, so they go to Egypt. They go to the room. They have the key. Of course, the priesthood kept it for all those years.
Yeah.
And then they go in there and they're trying to put the stones. They find out where to put them, but they can't figure out how to activate them.
Should we?
And Lilu is like in the middle, and she's all down in the dumps.
Yeah, because didn't mention en route to Egypt. She decided to Google war.
Yeah.
And she got real sad about it.
Because she was like, what's going on? Why is everyone shooting everybody? And she figures out, oh shit, humans suck. The world is terrible.
Yeah. It's rough. So she's really depressed by the time they get there. And they get, I call it a D&D dungeon puzzle.
Oh, yeah. They had to make successive skill checks.
Yeah. They have 4 MacGuffins. They have to figure out what the 4 MacGuffins do and how to implement them before they can solve the dungeon puzzle.
And they're like, we have 1 match. Better not fuck it up. So I'm going to strike it and hold it here away from the thing rather than striking it right at the stone.
Oh, it's so corny, but I just love it. I love this sequence. The idea that because he has the limited number of matches because he only gets those little stubby cigarettes.
Yeah.
They actually have seeded this through the whole movie, his matchbook. And so, of course, he just has the one, and he really makes a show of lighting it. And oh no, and then setting it down.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And eventually they're like, oh yeah, we got sparkles around all 4 of the stones. And Lilu's like, I don't want to save the world. People are cruel. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're not wrong, Lilu. Yeah. Just let it go.
Let Mr. Dark kill us all.
Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Don't make this weird.
Yeah. But Korben, he tells her that he needs her. And she tells him there's things worth fighting for. And she's like love? He goes, yeah, like love. And she's like, I don't know love. And he's like, I love you. And it's like, oh. And then she shoots a big laser out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And she zaps the dark planet.
It would have been great if she's like, I love you, Dad.
I love you like a dad.
Yeah. And Korben would be like, okay, this is weird.
We'll all be going now. Yeah. So she zaps the dark planet and it just dies there. And it's like 65 miles or 62 miles from impact. Can you imagine the chaos that would be environmentally caused by a new planetoid, a new moon showing up 60?
Oh, it's just the gravitational interference.
Things would just go fucking crazy if there was
You'd have birds flying all the wrong direction. They'd like fly into the sea.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy
it's like
things.
They saved the world from being destroyed, but a lot of bad stuff would definitely happen after this.
Oh, yeah. And then I have in my notes here, they get busy and the annoying mom joke is revived.
Yes. Because we go back to the lab where she was born earlier in the movie. And because they were so exhausted.
So is this even worse? Is she not just a 19-year-old? Is she literally a baby?
Well, technically speaking, she's like thousands of years old. Yeah,
okay. She's 5,000 years old.
But she has been in a sarcophagus for most of this time. Like
she was in that statue-looking thing. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So she has existed for thousands of years, but they've kept her like in the poly bag. Like they hadn't let her out until now. So it's up to you if you think she is 1 day old or thousands of years old.
I mean, yeah, I think
Korben Dallas is betting on she's at least 18 years old.
There's no ID to check.
Yeah, because they put the 2 of them in the rejuvenation tank or whatever they call it.
Back to tank.
Yeah, and the president comes and he wants to celebrate, and they look in the little window on the thing, and they're boning in there, and so they ask the president to hold on a little bit, but he's got stuff to do.
Yeah,
he's running the Federation of Planets.
He's Zeus.
Yeah, he's got
it's no hold barred.
He has a busy convention schedule where he goes and signs 8x10s of Zeus from No Holds Barred and Debo. Yeah, and the annoying mom calls, and then the really terrible song plays out on the credits. Like, it was very cheesy. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to the soundtrack earlier. So what was that song called? Little Light of Love. I actually liked Eric Serra's score through 99% of the movie.
Yeah, it was all right.
I like the funky tracks. I like the diva dance.
The Oscar that this movie won was for sound design.
Okay, that's distinct from the score, though. Like
sure, it's for sound design. Like that scene in the apartment where it just makes you feel anxiety.
Yeah,
that's sound design. Yeah.
And it deserves that.
It was really good. Yeah.
Little Light of Love, and that's the lead track on the soundtrack too. That's what that's their hit song.
It's no Crow soundtrack.
It's no Crow soundtrack. Yeah, I hate them. I hate them boning in the Back to Tank, and I hate that song.
Mm-hmm. No one can bone to that song.
I really enjoyed this movie, but it ends on a hard cringe. Like, it's like I watched it, like I'm smiling.
It started on a cringe with like imperialist grave robbing.
Maybe it's just my European sensibilities, but I didn't balk at all at the tomb rating. You're right, that's bad. England is bad. It's all bad, but I didn't bump up against it. Because when you set it in the past, then it becomes Indiana Jones. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, it just becomes fun.
When you do it now, you're like, this is theft. But when it's Indiana Jones doing it, you trust him because he's a hero.
He's a professor.
Yeah, it belongs in a museum in another country.
Yeah, far from here, where they will never see it again. There's a lot of cringe in this movie.
Yeah. So let's get into this stuff. What worked for you?
I mean, I would say it's actually fun and entertaining the whole way through. There's a lot of, it's just kind of paced really well. It's quick. The cutting back and forth during multiple scenes, like memorably the diva and the fight with Lilu. That scene's really great. Like, and I even think they do great cut scenes when Korben is fighting, and I think that those, like, the way this movie is cut together is just expertly done. I think that it keeps the pace feeling fresh, and they manage to disguise an ultimately linear plot with clever cuts. And then secondly, I think the casting is excellent. Like, I just love all of the actors in this movie. I just don't there's like no bombs. They're all super good.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's what I got.
Okay. So I've got two.
Oh, yeah. The diva song. It's hard to not call that. It's awesome.
Iconic. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Costuming. I already called that out earlier.
So my number one, Jean-Claude Mézier's production design and Jean-Paul Gaultier's costume design. The main way this film has remained influential is through the visual style of it. There's fashion designers still rip off the designs from this movie. It's still an influential movie. And, talking about how this is pre the modern era of comic book movies. It wasn't normal for a movie to look so comic booky as this movie looks. Even, in 2000, when the X-Men comes out, they're wearing black leather like it's the Matrix. They're not wearing, That
was a pretty cool movie.
Yeah, the second one even better. But they didn't. No one with bright orange hair. No one would dare to be as comic book movie as this movie is. So I just think the visual aesthetic of the movie was actually really groundbreaking, and it still looks cool. And then number two, same thing that you said, the cast. It's such, and not just Bruce Willis as Korben Dallas. It's the surrounding cast around him, because Korben Dallas himself is sort of a boring action hero. Like he's a very unmodern action hero, but everything around him feels very fresh. And so you sort of tolerate how behind the times he is because of how cool and modern everyone else is. Yeah. So just, great cast, great visual aesthetic.
All right.
What didn't work for you?
I mean, cheesy, super linear plot with no complexity at all. You know what's supposed to happen, like really quickly in the movie, and then it happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can say the same thing about like Lord of the Rings movies. You know what's supposed to happen, and then it happens. So this is kind of like, it's all about the journey. And so I don't know. I think that there's too much 60s retro in this. I would way rather have looked more Blade Runner, which has a noir vibe, but it's not campy. Like,
well, Blade Runner's 30s retro, right? Like,
sure, yeah. And I mean, or maybe, I don't know. I don't like retro future. As much as I do like Fallout for camp, I just don't love that whole shtick. Okay. Like, the future looks like the past. Ha ha ha. I don't like it. I thought the Bruce Willis, the idea of the Korben Dallas and Lilu, it's just creepy. It's groomy. I don't like it. I mean, Luke is groomy too. Like, there's creepster vibes over this whole movie. And so I give that as a didn't work for me. Yeah,
and that was not. None of that stuff appeared to me when I was a teenager.
Yeah,
but then
I would say that
now
too.
that I am essentially the same age that Bruce Willis is, it all feels very creepy. Like,
there is no way that you or I would meet a 19-year-old girl and be like, I found the perfect woman for me. It's like, dude, that's somebody's daughter. That's a kid.
It is so weird because, like, because my niece is 18. I go to concerts with her. We, I like her friends. They're adults, but they're children. Like, I never don't feel the fully 20 plus years that are in between us.
Yeah.
It's even worse here because, and I guess we're getting into
She's a day old.
Yeah, because what didn't work for me. And so what I put, it's the trope is called Born Sexy Yesterday.
Ooh.
And so this was coined in a video essay by the pop culture detective, aka Jonathan McIntosh, and IO9 published it. And he cites The Fifth Element as the quintessential example of Born Sexy Yesterday. And so this is the science fiction convention when the mind of what's essentially a naive yet highly skilled girl is written into the body of a mature sexualized woman. And it fetishizes the stark power imbalance between a wiser, more experienced man and a naive, inexperienced woman. And it's the ultimate teacher-student dynamic because she's totally dependent on this guy.
It's totally gross.
Yeah. And it's getting less and less common, thankfully. But it's in 2022, it's impossible to watch this without just being smacked in the face by how gross that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's time to rate it.
So my final thoughts and rating is that this was really enjoyable on the surface level. I enjoyed it more in my mind prior to rewatching it.
Yeah.
So my nostalgia for it was greater than the payoff of actually watching it again. I give it 3 stars.
You're a 3. I'm still at a 4 personally. But I don't think you're out of line for docking it a point because there's that just hasn't aged well. That part of it has not aged well.
I just think the director's a creep, and it leaked into the movie.
I mean, the evidence supports your case. Like, I mean, because the movie before this is Leon the Professional,
which has a creep factor.
Which has a major creep factor. And honestly, even a worse creep factor.
Oh, yeah.
Because Natalie Portman is literally
a child, yeah. And so, yeah, I just think this guy is just too French.
Too French. Yeah.
Sorry, French divers.
Divers.
Now we have none.
Au revoir.
You are too French for this podcast.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on The Fifth Element. You want to take a break?
I was just going to say that I do have IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. We got 7.6 IMDb and 71% Rotten Tomatoes. So it is right there between 60 and 80%, which would be our 3 or 4 stars. So we are both right. This is right in that zone of the 3.5 star movie.
How much you enjoy it depends on how well you can ignore that cringe.
Ignore the meta.
Yeah.
If you can just watch it and think that Zorg is great and all that, So, all right. So let's take a break and we will come back with our closing segment.
All right, welcome back, divers. It's time for our final segment, the one where I ask Dave, what are you into right now?
All right, I got a short one today. I've been doing a lot of armoring projects. I'm working on upgrading some elements of my armor kit. And to that end, I've been using one specific resource more than the rest. It is a YouTube channel and website for Dark Horse Workshop. He also has a really great Etsy store. So it's all available from his website, darkhorseworkshop.com.
Okay.
But his YouTube channel is pretty big. He's got a few 100,000 subscribers and Patreon, the whole deal. And he is a really expert leather worker. He's a guy who works in the Vancouver, BC movie industry. And makes
Hollywood North.
Yeah, he makes all kinds of cool historical or fantastical leather armor or goods or shoes or garments or whatever. He is like a leather armorer. And he does YouTube videos where he shows you how to do all kinds of cool things like leather carving, leather stamping, assembly of different things. And it's just a super great instructional website that is, and I know him personally, this guy I know named Magnus. I know him through the SCA. He is a guy who I've fought with and had beers with. He's a great guy. And his website is awesome. His Etsy, he sells you any pattern for anything on his YouTube. You can literally buy the pattern and then watch the instructional video on how to make it. And then he has all these different embellishment videos so you can like put these different designs. And if you don't have designs, he literally sells artwork that he has drawn, like historical Viking inspired artwork that you can put on leather goods or whatever you want. I've put some on my disc golf discs because I purchased this art and put dyes on there. Because that's the function. He sells the artwork for artists and crafters to make goods with the art. So yeah, I just love Dark Horse Workshop. It's an awesome resource if you're interested in historically inspired and leather goods or just art in general. It's pretty cool.
Made stuff like he makes stuff for like those CW shows like Arrow and stuff, right?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
So does he have like, if you were a cosplayer, does he have patterns for like if you want to make the Arrow hood or something?
I don't think so. I mean,
it might be some sort of copyright thing.
Yeah, and he has pages and pages on his Etsy store of patterns and things. I haven't really looked through most of them. I normally look for just sort of what I'm looking for, which tends to be the more the armoring stuff. I'm making myself a set of lamellar armor, which is the small plates that are metal plates that have like holes drilled on the edges of them, and then they're laced together and then leather edged and leather strapping and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a lot more rugged and robust than chainmail. it would have been way, way less common in Scandinavia. It's an imported armor style that was brought in by probably the Rus, who probably got it from Byzantine people.
Okay.
So it's like one of those kind of global armor styles that's like early plate in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
Before plate was really makeable. So it's pretty cool.
I love stuff like that because there was a little bit in an article I was reading about Polynesian migration, and there's the quote that I just like have always hung on to is the never make the mistake of thinking the ancient world was less dynamic than the modern world. Yeah. So like people moved around. People have always moved around. Stuff has gone from A to B. So like that Byzantine to Rus Viking to Scandinavia thing makes total sense.
Well, and that's just for the lamellar. There's actually finds that's the half of the journey. Diver Carey, who was a guest host, she did a whole paper and presentation on how there are silk finds in Sweden that made their way all the way through those routes, but all the way from China all the way to Sweden. And so like there's historical examples of that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Even though it was not dynamic for as many people, still things traveled. They got their way. Coin changed hands.
Right.
People like nice shit.
And people move that stuff. Some people were moving, but there's just not transcontinental railroads and planes and stuff. So
and there were a lot fewer people. That's my recommendation. Everybody should check out, if you're interested at all in any of those kind of topics, Dark Horse Workshop on YouTube, Etsy, or even just his own website, darkhorseworkshop.com.
Very cool.
So how about you? What are you into right now?
So this shouldn't be surprising. I think I foreshadowed this several episodes ago because I had previously at some
trimming?
Point, not hoof trimming. I previously had been into Steve Jones's memoir Lonely Boy, and I said then that it was being adapted as a series for Hulu. So what I'm into right now is the series Pistol by FX for Hulu, directed by Trainspotting director Danny Boyle, based on Steve Jones's memoir Lonely Boy, and it's a 6-part miniseries. The whole thing dropped all at once, and it's the history of the Sex Pistols. How much you like this thing depends very much on your level of tolerance for the music biopic formula. Because these are all kind of the same movie. This has 6 episodes, so it definitely takes its time a lot of times.
But these are all like apocryphal stories that you've kind of heard, right?
It's very much, it's very rooted in Steve Jones's memoir, but I think it borrows heavily from Chrissie Hynde of The Pretenders, her memoir, and John Lydon's memoir, and then probably some other historical documents on the time, different oral histories and memoirs. It has things in it, stories that I didn't know previously. The stories that I do know jive with my understanding of how they happened.
Okay.
And I really liked it. But I like this genre. Like, I like music bios. Unfortunately there was a great movie called Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Oh yeah.
That so perfectly lampooned the music bio that it's been next to impossible to take it seriously ever since then.
I love that movie.
It's so good. And it is a perfect music bio for a musician.
If it doesn't say Cox, it doesn't taste like Cox.
Get out of here, Dewey. You don't want none of this shit. Yeah, but this Dewey Cox is not what I'm into right now. I'm into Pistol. Trainspotting is one of my top 5 favorite movies.
Oh, wow.
So and I loved the book that it's based on, so it's a no-brainer for me. I was already in the bag for this, but I think anyone that's a fan of the punk rock genre, or a fan of the music biopic genre, or a fan of Danny Boyle's unique directing style, You're going to enjoy this. It looks like it's all shot on like 16 millimeter.
Okay.
So that when they cut to 1970s TV footage, it's often hard to tell what's actual vintage footage and what's the new footage.
Oh, that's cool.
Because like they'll be going down like King's Road in London, and then it goes from actual archival footage to stuff that they shot. Like they refaced the buildings to make them look like 1977. And it's just really cool. The attention to detail is excellent, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Sounds cool. Doesn't really sound like my bag, but it does sound cool.
Okay.
All right.
Call to action?
Yeah, so don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcatcher, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and Audible, and even Stitcher. Don't forget to leave us a review. 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
New episodes of Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse drop the 1st and 15th of every month. We are on all social media platforms across the Metaverse as at Deep Dive the Meta. We are on Twitter, which I think these days both of us prefer.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram, which I still also like, but we are stubbornly still on Pinterest, which no one likes.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.